This video is to give you an overview of using QuickBooks Online. We will be looking at creating and recording sales invoices, entering purchase invoices and expenses, and recording bank transactions. We will also look at a few hints and tips to make using QuickBooks Online an easy and enjoyable experience. My name is Haidee Everson. When you first log on to QuickBooks Online, you will be presented with your dashboard. This shows you an overview of your invoices, your expenses, your profit and loss, and your sales. You can set these to whether it's in the last month, quarter, year, however you want. Profit and loss the same, and the same for your sales. It also gives you an overview of your bank accounts and different things that you can start using straight away. Your links to the various areas of QuickBooks Online are down the side. We start with the dashboard, and we've got our banking screen, our sales, expenses, employees if you're going to use QuickBooks Online payroll, a link to reports, taxes, accounting, and My Accountant. We'll look at each of these individually in a little more depth in a moment. You can also get to each of these areas via a quick link up the top here. The plus sign gives you access to the customers and the various things that you would want to do relating to customers, your suppliers, and again the various items, employees, and then anything else that you might want to do. Okay, let's have a look at sales within QuickBooks Online. We'll start on the side here. We'll go down the side to sales, and then you can see there's various tabs across the top. Sales, invoices, customers, products and services. All sales shows you everything relating to your sales. There's a filter button which you can pick out maybe just one customer that you have. Let's have a look at Adwin Co. You can select all transactions from a particular date. Let's find something a little more current. Let's come up to the 1st of June and we'll come up to the 1st of December. And we'll go apply, and that shows us that for that customer within that date range we've raised one invoice which is overdue. Okay. If we want to look at the details of the customers that we have set up on QuickBooks Online, we'll go to the Customers tab up here. It gives us the name of each of our customers, the currency that we're invoicing them in, and the balance that's outstanding. It also gives us some actions that we can do regarding this customer. Right. Let's have a look at how we will raise a sales invoice. We could go via the sales on the left hand side here, but let's go via the quick link, the plus sign, under customers, and then we click on invoice. We'll be presented with an invoice that we can now complete. We can choose a customer if we've used this customer before, or we can set up a new one. Let's set up a new one for now. We'll add Paul. Are we going to invoice him in sterling or any other currency? I think we'll use sterling. We can add further details, name, address, phone number. Let's not do that at the moment. Oh, you've lost Paul. Let's enter Paul in again, add Paul, correct currency, and remember to click save. We can add our customer's email address. That way we can send the invoice direct to the customer via email. We can show the terms, the invoice date if it's not the current date. And then this product and service box. This is optional. If you're tracking your stock, you'll want to enter that here. Select the stock item, or there's various other categories that you can track as well. Otherwise, we will just enter something in the description. Services for the month of December. We have to put a quantity in, so if you're not selling, an actual product, you just want to put a quantity of one. We'll put our rate in, let's say £500. this will be automatically calculated. We then need to select the VAT. If you're not VAT registered, you'll want to select no VAT. If you are VAT registered, you're likely, majority of your products are going to be 20%, but you have the other options here if necessary. We can the class is due for another kind of tracking that can be set up, and the same with the location box up here. There's various ways that you can track and group your information. Right, okay. If you want a message outside of the lines that you're entering here, that can be displayed down here, such as your bank information. And also, when it's going to display on a statement, you can set your message here. If you're going to send your invoice by email and you've got certain things that you want to attach to it, they can be attached here. You can also set a discount amount or a deposit if your customer has already sent you a deposit for this particular invoice. We can have more than one line, so let's put stationery involved. Okay, again we've got one. We're saying £20, and that's going to be 20% VAT as well. Now we can move the order of these invoices, these lines around, or we can decide, no, I don't want that line at all. I'm going to delete that one. Okay. There's also this box where when you enter an amount, it either is exclusive of VAT, in which case the VAT is added on afterwards, or inclusive of VAT, or there's no VAT included in it at all. We started with excluding VAT. Oh, we need to add back in our VAT percentage. There we go. So we've got our £500 plus £100 VAT. Now let's save this for now. Okay. At this stage, we can print or preview our invoice. Let's have a look at previewing it. Okay. This will obviously be set to your own details as invoice to pull, all of the details that we had. Okay, so we can print it there or we can close it. And then under the button here, we can either save and send it, save and create a new invoice, or save and close. Let's save and close for now. Another really useful button for the more advanced user is this More button. Let's click on the More, and we can, if we don't like this invoice at all, we can delete it at this point. We can also take a copy of it, and if we're going to raise a very similar invoice in the future, or we can look at the transaction journal. This shows us what postings will be generated within QuickBooks when we post this invoice. So it's showing us here. Let's come out of here. It's showing us that it's the debit is going to the debtors, and the credit is going to the services account, and the VAT is going to the VAT control account. So let's look at purchases and expenses. We have the choice of entering these from the left-hand side under the Expenses tab. As you can see, there's two tabs, one for supplier, one for expenses. We can this shows all the expenses that we've recorded so far. If we want to look back for something, we can filter these. We might want to look at all the expenses that we've recorded for Mark Howard. We'll apply that. Okay, that shows us all our expenses relating to Mark Howard. We can also select this by date range, so just for the last quarter. We'll apply that. There we go, all our expenses to Mark Howard for the last quarter. We could click on suppliers, and this shows us all the supplier names we have entered so far. We can search for a particular supplier. Let's search for Cass. Here we go, she's here. These are all the expenses that we have recorded against Cass at the moment. Let's go back to here. If we have a new supplier, we can enter them in here. We would want to enter in all our normal details that we would want to record, names, addresses and the like. Now if the supplier is going to pay us in euros instead of sterling, we would need to select that here. Okay, we would then select euros. And then we would save that supplier. If a supplier would pay invoices us in both euros and sterling, you need to set up two supplier accounts, one for the euro invoices and one for the sterling invoices. The other way to get to expenses is via the quick link plus sign. There are two ways expenses are usually recorded. If it is an expense that you have paid for immediately, for instance, you have bought some stamps from the post office and have used your business debit card, then we'll use the expense button. Right, here you have the option of entering who you paid, so we'll put in the post office. We need to select the bank account that the money was paid out of. In this case it was the current account. The payment date will default to today's date, but we can enter in any date that the relevant date, and we have the option of entering the payment method. We're going to leave that blank. Now we must enter an account to categorise this expense. These accounts will be from your chart of accounts, and we'll look at this shortly. We're going to select postage and delivery for these stamps. We can either go down the drop down list, or we can start typing in the name of the account that we want and it'll pop up. We'll enter the description, which we bought 200 first class stamps and they had a cost of £134. And we know that the VAT on stamps is exempt. Okay, we're going to enter another line. This is also for stamps, postage and delivery. We bought 500 second class stamps. These cost £290 and that's also exempt for VAT. I think we need to invest in a franking machine. Okay, we also bought some envelopes. These are going to go down as office supplies. So we bought the envelopes and they cost £25 plus VAT. Now, up here we've got exclusive of VAT selected. We could say inclusive, but we're going to keep it at exclusive. So it cost £25 and then the VAT on that was 20% standard rated VAT. Okay, so you can see that down here that the VAT has been added. We can add a memo if we want to, and we can attach a copy of the receipt that we were given. Okay, it's always a good idea to check that the total we've recorded does agree to the amount that we actually paid. If we're happy with what we've entered, we can enter save. We can either, if we have another expense to record, we can use save and new, or we can click save and close. Now we're going to click save and new so that I can show you another interesting thing within expenses. Okay, this button, this is really useful. Clicking this will show us all the recent expenses that we have entered. So if we want to go back to one that we've previously put in, we can just click on it and get there. And if we click on the view more, it'll bring up a list of all our recent expenses. And we can change the search criteria to help us find what we are looking for. If our expense is something that we will pay for later, but we have been given an invoice now, then we will enter this as a bill. So we'll go to Quick Links, under Suppliers, we'll select Bills. Okay, now we must choose a supplier in this case. We've just received an invoice from British Telecom, so we'll enter the supplier name of British Telecom. It's come up already. If we hadn't have had an invoice from them before, it would prompt us to select a new supplier. Right, so we need to enter the terms of the invoice, so we're being given 30 days terms, and this will determine the due date, so when we have to pay them by. We need to enter the invoice date, so they invoiced us on the 16th, no they didn't, that's a Sunday, they invoiced us on the 14th of December, which means that the due date will be the 13th of January. Okay, we also want to enter in the invoice number. This will help us if we need to go back to the paper copy of the invoice. Right, we must select an account. In this case, we're going to put in, again, we could use the drop-down list, or we could just start typing that we want to record this as telecom expense. Okay, we're going to say that this is for calls for the 2nd of November to the 1st of December 2018. Okay, and the amount net of VAT is £125. Again, we can see up here we've got exclusive of VAT selected. We can choose either of these two options, but we're going to stick with exclusive of VAT. Now, the VAT on telephones is standard rated, so we'll choose 20% standard rated. Right, okay. And then we need to check that the total amount of that we've entered agrees with what's on the invoice. If this VAT is slightly out, sometimes it can vary by a couple of pennies, we can overwrite with the amount that's shown on the invoice. We can also add a memo, and we can attach a copy of the invoice, which is really useful if you don't want to go hunting through paper files afterwards. Sometimes you'll find this item details will be reduced like this. If the invoice had been for something that we were tracking, like a stock item, we would enter that under this item details rather than under the account details section. So you can see you've got the two different sections there. Item details if you want to record the product or service that it relates to, or account details if you just want to post it direct to your chart of accounts expense. When you're happy with what you've entered, we can click Save and Close, or we can click Save and New. So let's go and click Save and New, and we can see that as with the expenses, we have this really useful button here which shows us the recent invoices that we have entered. We can go back to that invoice that we've entered. Here we go. And then if later on we found, oh, we've entered something correct here, and that maybe it was actually from the 2nd of October rather than November, we can change it October, and we can save, and that'll overwrite what we had written before. Okay, and it's always it's useful to remember that we've got this More button down here. It's quite an advanced button, but if we find that we've done this invoice and maybe we've already recorded it once, and so we want to delete this copy, we can press the delete button. It gives you, are you sure you want to delete this? And in this case I'm going to say no. It's also useful because if you have several similar invoices, you can copy this invoice, right? It tells you here it's just a copy, so you can overwrite the necessary details and save it as a new invoice. Okay, let's save that, and then that'll give us the More button again, and it also shows us the transaction journal. So it'll show you what the postings are behind the scenes. So it's showing you credit to creditors, debit the net amount to telephone expenses, and the VAT has gone to the VAT control account. The next area to look up are bank transactions. We need to enter the business bank transactions that we have made. These can be done manually, but the best way is to set up a bank feed so the transactions from your bank account are fed into QuickBooks Online. If you have not set up a bank feed yet, you will be prompted to do so when you click on the banking button. On this demonstration, there are already a couple of bank accounts set up, but you can add as many accounts as appropriate. So if we click on Add Account, you'll see that some bank accounts are already listed, but if yours isn't listed, just start typing in the name of the account. And if it's supported by QuickBooks, it'll be listed below. You then click on the link and QuickBooks will talk you through how to link your bank account into QuickBooks. Once your feed is set up, you will see all of your bank transactions listed. You can then categorize and add them as appropriate. QuickBooks will learn as you do it. As you can see that Suppliers Depot at the moment are all saying they're uncategorized expenses. If we click on there and we change that uncategorized expense into, let's call these office supplies, and then we need to select a VAT rate. So if we go 20% standard rate of VAT, do you want to set this as a default for office supplies? Yes, we do. We can overwrite on any expense. So once we're happy with all those details, we can click Add, and that'll post that expense into QuickBooks in the same way as we manually added an expense earlier. Now you will see that QuickBooks has remembered the category we chose for Supplies Depot, and it has recategorized all of the others, and it's remembered the VAT. This can of course be overwritten at any point. Anything in green means that QuickBooks has recognized it. If we want to deal with these first, we can click on the Recognize tab. If we look at this entry here, Jennifer Hargreaves, we can see that this amount has already been manually entered into QuickBooks. When the feed has come in from the bank, QuickBooks has recognized that the same amount is already recorded. So what we can do is just to match the amount from the bank feed to what's already in QuickBooks. Right, we can now look at these other amounts, the office supplies, and if we're happy that each of these amounts from Supplies Depot relates to office supplies and they each have VAT on it, we can do a batch action, collect them all, click the down button and say Accept Selected. Okay, now if we go back to our three that weren't recognised by QuickBooks, right, QuickBooks here has found that there are two records that might match this amount from the bank statement, and it's given us the choice as to which one we're going to select it against. So I reckon it's going to be this one. So we've already recorded in QuickBooks that there was a cheque on the 25th of July from Bank of any city, and on the bank statement it's showing us 26th of July, so we're pretty happy that that's the one that it should match to. So we'd select the appropriate one, click Match. Okay, we're left with two more expenses. So let's have a look at this one. Coffee Place. Now, what was this for? Right, it was for travel expenses. So if it was coffee incurred whilst on a business trip. So we can categorise this to travel expenses, and we can claim the VAT because it's a legitimate travel expense. Okay, we're not going to remember that as a default code. Right, okay, so we're happy with that, and we're going to click Add. Okay. And now the next coffee expense, right, now this was for meals and entertaining. So we'll select meals and entertaining, and because we can't claim the VAT back on here, so we'll go No VAT, and then we'll click Add. So all of the amounts from our bank transactions have now been fed straight into QuickBooks. Give it a few more days, we go back into this banking section, the bank will feed through a few more transactions. Right, we can have a look up here and we can see what from our bank accounts have we already put through into QuickBooks. We can see everything that we have added or matched being entered there. If there was something that came through the bank account that we didn't think was correct, and so we didn't want it to go into QuickBooks, maybe somehow that bank feed has shown something twice, we can exclude it, in which case it'll be shown here in this excluded column. And then if at some point we think, no, that shouldn't have been excluded, we can undo it. That'll put it back into the review. Let's do that, excluded, undo, back into review, and it shows us that we've got this one amount here again. There is a further bank reconciliation, which it is recommended that you do at least once a month, and that is by comparing what is in QuickBooks with your actual bank statements. So we get to that via this gear icon, and then under Tools we select Reconcile. Okay, and it's our current bank account, and we have a choice here, but it's the current bank account that we want to reconcile. We've been a bit naughty and we haven't done this for a while, so we're going to select the end date of 31st of May. 31st of May, and from our bank statement we can see that our balance in our bank account at that date was 90. Rather nice. So let's click Start Reconciling. Right. Okay, so we go down our bank statement and we tick off the amounts that are recorded in QuickBooks to see that they agree with our bank statement. And if they do, we can see, right, there's no difference between the bank statement and what's in QuickBooks, and so our difference is 0. At this point, we can either finish now, or if we did have a difference, we could say save for later, and then we could go and investigate where our differences were, and if necessary, bring another payment into or receipt into QuickBooks, or indeed if something's been duplicated, we'd be able to remove it. But we're happy, our difference is 0, so we're going to click Finish Now. Success. That's nice. Click Done. The next area to look at will be VAT. We get to VAT down the left hand side, the taxes section. Okay. As you can see, we've got 2 VAT returns here that have already been filed, and then this return, which is for the previous quarter, is now ready for filing. Before we do so, we want to just check the details included, so we can click on View Summary. This will show us a familiar 9 boxes, and if you want we can drill down into each of these boxes and it'll show us what's included in there. So the box 4, each of the items included in there. Now if we go back to the VAT return screen again, drop down box, and we go into the View VAT Details, this will give us a nice report all in one place of the information that makes up box 1, box 4, box 6, box 7, and if you have any of the other boxes to be completed. This report can be printed out, or it can be exported to PDF or Excel, or even emailed. Once we're happy that everything in this VAT return is correct, we can click on Submit VAT Return. This will bring us up the familiar 9 boxes again, and QuickBooks Online will be fully compliant with Making Tax Digital regulations, and so we can just click the Submit to HMRC, and that'll be it. Well, we'll need to fill in our Government Gateway information, and then the VAT return will go straight to HMRC. Okay, let's take a look at the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts is the list of all the accounts that we have set up for categorizing our assets and liabilities and our income and our costs. We can get to the chart of accounts via this gear icon and chart of accounts there, or we can go down the left hand side into accounting and chart of accounts. Here you can see all the accounts that have been set up so far. Now you might find that the one that it's something that's particular to your business has not been set up, so we can set up a new account. Let's set up a new income account. So we're going to Account Type, we'll select Income, Detail Type, we'll have Other Primary Income, and then in the name we'll have Teaching Assistants. Okay, we could put a number if we want to have codes for each of our nominal accounts, and we could put a description, and we can set a default VAT code. In this case we're going to have a VAT code of 20%. Then we can save and close, and that has now been set up within our chart of accounts. If we want to find it, we can either scroll on down, or you might find it easier just to put into the search box teaching assistants. Right. From this screen, we can run a report on everything that's been recorded into this account. At the moment, there won't be anything in there because we've only just set it up. But if there was, it would all appear here. We'd be able to print the report, we'd be able to export it to Excel or to PDF, and we'd be able to change the date range of the report. There's various customizations that you can do within the report. Customize. So there's quite a lot you can do within here. Let's take a look at the reports that QuickBooks has built in. So down the left hand side, we click on reports. It's added a few favourites to the top here. You can categorise whatever you want to go into that favourites box. It's starting with your aged debtors, the people who owe you money. You've got a list and the amount that they owe you. You can customise this into whatever date period you want. You can print it, you can export it, you can email it. Let's go back to this reports list. They've also added as favourites your balance sheet. So all of your assets and all of your liabilities as they stand per the information that you've put into QuickBooks to date. And then also profit and loss account. Again, the information that you've put into QuickBooks to date will be shown income, expenses, and the profit that that is showing at the moment. You can change the period that this relates to. You can put in a custom period, and again, you can print it, export it. Right, okay, there's various other reports that are already built into the system. You can track your profit by your customer. That's a nice, useful report. And together by location or class, by months. Back to report list. So we've already looked at the who owes you money, but there's various other sort of sales reports here. And again, sales by customer, and then who you owe, the suppliers that you owe money to, and again, lots of very useful information in here indeed. Let's have a look at some of the more advanced features. If we go within the gear icon here, manage users, this is a useful one. If you want to add users from within your business to give people access to your QuickBooks, we can go into add user. Let's add them as a standard user, and we're going to give them limited access. We just want them to be able to deal with the customers, so they won't be able to see any of the suppliers' details or the other codes. They'll just be able to do the things on this list. Then we go next. Do you want to give them these abilities? Again, that's all customizable. Next, and then you would add their first name, last name, and their email address, and then QuickBooks will then send them an email inviting them to have access to your version of QuickBooks. Right, another useful place within this gear icon is account and settings. Right, this is where you complete the name of your business, company's house registration, whether you're a limited company, partnership, etc., and then your company address. Within sales, this is where you can customize the way that your sales invoices look. So let's create a new style invoice. Right, so if you're not happy with that blue colour and you'd rather have it in pink or purple, you can add your own logo, change up the template. You can have it in different designs. Get choosy with your font. What have we got here? Courier. Oh, it's not very nice, is it? there's quite a bit of customization within here. The way some of the boxes are, the emails, if you're sending your invoices by email, you have a standard message to go with them, and payments, various ways that you can set up that you can accept payment if you've got the appropriate accounts set up, and if you're emailing your customers, they'll then have a box to click on just to settle their accounts immediately. So let's save, exit without saving. Right, let's go back into that accounts and settings. That was under sales. You can set the terms that'll appear on your sales invoices. Various other things within here. Expenses. Again, if you want to track expenses and items by the customer that they relate to, you can turn that on. Make expenses and items billable. You turn that on. What that does is it'll allow you to set a customer against your costs, and so you know which costs relate to a particular customer, and it'll help you then invoice those costs onto that customer if that's the way that your business works. Okay, let's go into the advanced setting. This gives you some various options. Right, tracking classes and locations. We've seen this on some of the invoices. We can turn it on and off. If it's something you're not going to use, you can turn it off so that it doesn't clutter up the forms that you're completing each time that you're putting on a purchase or a sales invoice. But if you are using them, you can, like say, this is where we turn them on and off. Let's leave without saving. Yes, we will leave without saving, and we'll get back to our dashboard. One of my other favourite features within QuickBooks Online is this search box up here. Just click on it and it gives you the latest entries that you've made on there, or you can type in for a report that you've recently used, so like your trial balance. Click on there and it just comes up with the report. Click on there again. There's also an advanced search box. You go into the advanced search and you can look for anything that is in QuickBooks. So let's go for an expense. Let's try and find an expense that we've entered. We're going to search for the amount, and it was an amount of £60, but I can't remember who it was to. So let's put it in search, and here it's come up. Celeste Hunter, we had an expense for £60 in there. So that search box there is all the time. And is, it's a really useful feature of QuickBooks. I hope that has given you sufficient information to start using QuickBooks Online. There are still some features that I haven't covered, so don't be afraid to have a look around and explore any links that you find.